Baccarat. The story about two disciples of some master. Part 2. This story closes to the legend, but I have no idea whether it's true or not. And I have nothing to do with it at all. Part 2. The other disciple B. Two men in neat clothes waiting for a taxi didn't look like those who just got off the plane. A taxi soon pulled up in front of them, and driver B got off to put their luggage in the trunk. Their destination was the most famous casino hotel in that country. When they told their destination, B watched them narrowly for a while. One was an aged man who had a strong first impression, and the other was a stocky figure middle-aged man who seemed to assist him. B grasped the situation in a flash with a quick wit. Then he said that he hoped their great win in their language. The two were surprised by the words of B, at the same time. It's because as soon as B saw them, he figured out who they were and what their purpose was, and he even said a good thing in their language. The aged man suddenly got curious about the taxi driver and began to ask. And B told them all about himself without constraint. B was once an executive of a well-known trading company. When he was on a business trip for a very important deal in Hong Kong, he went to some casino in Macau because of a buyer. At that time, B went to the casino for the first time in his life, and learned the Baccarat game for the first time. Since then, whenever he was on a business trip to Hong Kong, he booked a return flight taking off from Macau airport and always stopped by casinos on the last day of his business trip. B was an ordinary player who liked to enjoy the game with little money. And he always wanted to study the Baccarat game in more depth. However, one day the company suddenly went bankrupt, and B had a hard time finding a new job. Besides, since the national economy suffered, he remained unemployed for a long time. And then he managed to become a taxi driver. B replied to the last question of the aged man as follows when they almost reached their destination.
Naturally, because I thought of Baccarat as a hobby, I never thought I could do it for a living. Most of all, I couldn't put my family's livelihood in an unstable situation.
After hearing this, the aged man seemed to think deeply for a moment, and then told B that he had something to say in the hotel lobby. B entered the hotel lobby as if he was willing to go on a little adventure. The stories he heard there were more surprising than he had vaguely expected. The aged man was visiting casinos around the world and was making a big profit with Baccarat. And the man next to him was his attendant and bodyguard. He had been winning every game in the past decade. And the secret was that he only bet when he was likely to win. If other people said this, B would have laughed, but he believed the words of this aged man. B thought that those who saw this aged man couldn't help trusting his words. In conclusion, the aged man offered one suggestion to B. The aged man said that he would send B materials for studying Baccarat once a month for 1 year. And during 1 year, he said that B should never go to the casino. B had an intuition that this was a great opportunity in his life. But he started to worry about how much to pay for it. At that very moment, the aged man said that instead, he wouldn't pay for the cost of a taxi to and from the airport today and tomorrow. In the current situation of B, it was never a little amount, but he didn't want to miss this opportunity. B hesitated for a while and promised to do so. Then the aged man went up to the hotel room first, and the other middle-aged man said a word to B. He said that the master seemed to like B very much. And he said that people didn't value what they got for free, so the master made you pay for it. Subsequently, B drove them to the airport the next day as promised, and gave the aged man an email address. 2 days after leaving them, B received an email attached a handwritten document elaborating on the scoreboard of Baccarat from the aged man. B thought this might be part of the aged man's notebook. And for a month, B was able to find all the answers to those things he was curious about a long time ago. B worked hard for a living and devoted the rest of the time to study notebook that the aged man was sending. While doing that, 1 year just passed by so quickly. During that time, after all, what B mastered were situations in which he should not bet. When B heard this from the aged man by email, he didn't understand at first glance. But once he decided to do what the aged man ordered next. B had to go to the casino every day for 1 month and bet only once with the minimum bet amount. The amount of the bet was only $25, so it wasn't a burden, but he couldn't bet because he had only one chance. Besides, he seemed to be stuck in situations that he couldn't bet all over because of hard studying. But after a while, at one of many tables, he found a situation that he had no reason not to bet. So he placed a bet and won. It took less than 20 minutes for him to enter the casino, won $25, and left. Also, he was lucky enough to pick up a guest waiting for a taxi at the casino. It turned out that this was also the considerate thought of the aged man. Even if B lost money by betting, the casino hotel always had guests waiting for a taxi, so he could recover the lost money right away. Surprisingly, however, B has never lost for a month. As each month learned little more aggressive betting strategies than earlier, B's bankroll increased exponentially. I won't tell you how much money B got his hands after 1 year. The important thing is that he is still a taxi driver. I'm sure that he is the richest and happiest taxi driver in the world. Subscription and like are free, but it's the best investment. Thank you.